Those who haven't finished, you still can continue. The first question, there's some more in here. What is the Buddhist perspective regarding organ donation before or after death? Organ donation, when a person passes away, we know that before he passes away, he has 8 consciousness. Eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue or taste consciousness, touch consciousness. These are the 5 senses in the forefront. And then there's also the 6th consciousness, which is the mano consciousness, which called, or the mano vijnana in the Sanskrit word, the 6th consciousness. And then there's a 7th consciousness, which is the manas consciousness, and there is the 8th consciousness, which is the alaya consciousness. Without me explaining to you the meaning of each consciousness, I'm sure you grasp from its superficial meaning the 5, the forefront one, the tongue, the taste, the touch, and all that. Those are easier to understand. And how about the 6th consciousness, the mano consciousness? The mano consciousness is the analytical, the conceptualization one. In other words, the eye consciousness itself cannot identify the object. It can only, like a camera lens, it perceives the object, but it still have to, the 6th consciousness still have to analyze it, judge it, discriminate it, and go back, flash back to remembrance to find out what it means. So the 6th consciousness is actually the master of the foregoing 5. And that is also the 7th and the 8th consciousness. The 7th and 8th consciousness, they are like brothers to each other. The 7th consciousness is the ego that has been brought forward from previous lives. The I, the ego. This is me. I love, I possess, I hate, I'm jealous, I'm angry, all this I, the ego consciousness. And the 8th consciousness is the storage. But if you go by the computer, that is the memory that stores all that. All your life experiences, the past and the present life experiences. So when a person passes away, now, in addition to that, I have to explain also the 4 elements. What does this body make up of? As far as the body is concerned, basically there are 4 elements that make up the body. The solidity element, which is the bone, the hair, the teeth, the nails, the solid, like solidity element. The fluidity element, the blood, the water, the fluidity. And then there is the heat element, which is the temperature. And then is the movement element, which is the breath. If we can just broadly categorize them, the body, we make up of these 4 elements, very general, in a very general way, these 4 elements. When a person passes away, the first elements that would go, that would leave, is the movement, the breath, and the heat. There's no temperature anymore. There's no breath anymore. The heart stops beating. And then, as time goes on, the fluidity element would go, because when a person passes away, he got buried underground, ocean park, ocean view, and then the water would go out, and then finally the bones would disintegrate, the skeletons will be gone. So these 4 elements will finally disintegrate into the atmosphere. But they go in sequence though. They don't go at once. That's the physical side, the body side. But let's ask the question, how about the mental side? Are you only just a body? You got no mentality? You got the spiritual part also, and that we call the consciousness. When a person passes away, the first loss of the consciousness is in the eye consciousness. He can't see anymore. That's why the doctor would check your eyes to see the pupil. If it's open, can you see? No more sight. The eye consciousness is gone. But the ear consciousness may still be there. So in other words, family members weeping and crying, being very grief-stricken, the person who passes away could hear everything, still can hear what you're talking. If the sons and the daughters were arguing about where to be buried, how to split up the possessions, how to contract, and if they argue and all that, the person who passes away can hear all this argument, can hear all this crying, all this confusion, all this commotion, if there's any. Because the hearing consciousness is still there. So, all these things, consciousness, the person is still conscious. All this consciousness will go in sequence. And the last consciousness, which is the alaya consciousness, the storage consciousness, will be the last one to leave, the last consciousness to leave the body. When a person is ready to be born into the embryo of the mother, into the cell of the mother's womb, the first consciousness, the first to get in is the alaya consciousness. The alaya consciousness will all of a sudden, in a flash of a second, zoom into the mom's womb. Because when the husband and the wife is doing the relationship, then there is a sparkle of light, and this consciousness, because it's related to this man and a woman in previous life, there's some unfinished business. There's some relationship in the previous life, but zoom into the mom's, the consciousness will get in there. That's the first consciousness, is the alaya consciousness, to get into the womb, into the mom's body. That's the first to enter it. There's a stanza for it. The first to enter and the last to leave. When a person passes away, however, that alaya consciousness is the last consciousness to leave. So when a person passes away, he loses sight, he loses hearing, he loses taste, touch may be the later ones to leave. So if you donate an organ, your lung, your spleen, or your heart, or whatever it is, if the doctor has to operate on you to take it out immediately after your death, you may be able to still feel the pain. It depends on how late the doctor operates on you to get your organ out. But I've heard that if it is very late in the game, it's not going to be a good game, because the organ is useless if it's too late. It has to be taken out almost like as soon as possible, because before it gets stale, so to speak. So, thinking about that, if I'm ready to donate my organ, but mind you though, to some people, the alaya consciousness on death could almost leave immediately. For those who are philanthropists, who are always doing good deeds, when they passed away, they don't have to go through the bardo stage. And yet you have to understand what the bardo stage is. They don't have to go through the bardo stage. They would immediately reincarnate in heaven because of the good deeds that they have performed. They don't need to go through the bardo stage. In other words, at this juncture of death, boom, they're reborn in heaven, almost like immediately. The consciousness is left already. The alaya consciousness. For those who perform extremely good deeds, philanthropists, extremely compassionate person, heroes who sacrifice for their folks, you know. And also, on the other hand, for those who committed the most evil sins, killers, murderers, and all that, on death, they may not have to go through the bardo stage. Their consciousness will immediately go down to hell as victims of hell. Don't go through the bardo stage. So those are the extremes. All this others is in between. Some consciousness leave, maybe in a day, in 7 hours, in 6 hours, and some even stay for 2 days to 3 days. We don't know. So thinking about that, and you ask me, is it right to donate organ? I said yes. I said no. On the one hand, I said yes. If you're compassionate enough, if you're a bodhisattva, if you don't mind suffering the pain, my suffering of the pain is just that cut off of the organ, but I'm willing to suffer this pain for the benefit of the recipient of the organ. I'm willing to do that. It does not matter my pain. I can endure it, but I want to save. That's the last thing I can do for humanity. I want to be a bodhisattva. Go ahead and donate your organ. On the other hand, if you say, no, I don't like the pain. I don't know if I can stand it. And if I'm painful, I may be angry, and I've been so painful that some hatred in me may arise, some anger in me may arise, and because of my anger, because of my hatred, I may reincarnate into the bad realms. So I don't want to. Fine with you. So if you want to ask me, I said yes. I said no. You make the decision. Is that a good answer? Some people nod his head or her head. Okay. Saves me into getting into trouble. Yes. Yeah?
I just read a quite funny story about a husband and wife.
Yeah?
She needed a kidney, and husband gave her a kidney.
Yeah.
But then they got divorced. And he went to the court and asked for the kidney back.
And then the husband said, give me back my kidney.
That's true story.
Yeah. And then the wife said, yes, I'll give it back to you when I'm dead. I don't need it. And then the lawyer said, after death, I don't know if there's a legal contract that binds a person after death. That belongs to the religious community. So next time when you donate to your husband and to your wife, get a contract. Now, if you betrayed me, I'm going to get your kidney back. So he won't betray you. But I have heard about compassionate and mothers who donate kidney to their daughters, to daughters. There's one MP in Hong Kong, a very famous MP, a woman. She donated half of her organ to her daughter at the risk of her life. There are people like that. Yeah. So, talking about the value of life, every organ is important. Every finger, every bone. So how can you say you want to commit suicide? How can you say I prefer death? Life is so valuable. Every organ is valuable. And you are telling me that I prefer death because of this, because of that? Life is so valuable. Could you please tell us about birthmark in relation to reincarnation in Buddhist perspective? Birthmark, I think birthmark meaning, when you were born, you have certain things on your body, reincarnation. I've read and I've heard many stories about birthmarks, story about here was a man, before he died, he said, I'll be reborn in so and so's family to be his son. You go and meet me, and I have a mark in here in my buttock. I have something in there, and then the son, after a few months, went to visit the family, and really he saw a baby born with the birthmark in there. So that shows reincarnation. There's a lot of examples showing relationship between birthmark and reincarnation. But how does it help you to understand? You mean you want to have faith in believing in reincarnation, so you want to tie birthmark to reincarnation? If you can tie that, you believe in it? There's so many examples and cases about birthmarks, about people who die and reborn and they know they have a birthmark. That's a relationship between it. But even if there's no birthmark, I believe in reincarnation. It's just your faith is not strong in believing in reincarnation. You need something concrete to make you more comfortable in believing in it. There's so many cases, not just of birthmark, life experiences about reincarnations. The cleverness of certain individuals brought from previous life. And some of them even recognize families, family members of the previous lives. As I said, check the internet for reincarnation. There's a lot of survey and researches done by Anderson, a scholar who passed away already. For the past 150 years, there's a lot of Western scholars who perform a lot of reincarnation experiments, cases and visits to different countries and studying reincarnations, and they find that reincarnation to be highly trustworthy, something that they should really believe. And if they don't believe in it, there's nothing to explain it other than reincarnation. Reincarnation just tells us that this life is not an end in itself. There's a continuation. Death is the beginning of another life, which is logical. If you don't believe in reincarnation, that means you only believe in this life. Say, if I don't believe in reincarnation, I would say, after this life, I don't believe in reincarnation. I'm gone. I'm forever gone. No more of me exist. If you don't believe in reincarnation, that is your concept. But then, that concept has a lot of flaws in it. First of all, that concept will not help humanities from the moral side. If we dissect this concept into different categories, we say, how does this concept, of course there's a lot of support for this concept, but how does this concept work? If a person passes away and that's the end and nothing will happen, the world is going to be very dangerous to live in. Because I only have this life, as long as I'm happy, as long as I can satisfy my senses to have happiness, I can kill, I can rape, I can lie, I can do whatever I want, as long as I'm happy, because after this life there's no more. Why do I have to worry about, why do I have to be responsible for my actions after life? Then that's a criminal attitude to life. But on the other hand, you believe in reincarnation, you hesitate. Oh, if I do these bad deeds, all this karma will carry into the next life. All this will be causes for the next life. I'm going to stop. It's not just the end. There's going to be karma passed down. So you would stop. You would improve. You would stay away from doing bad deeds, and you will only do good deeds. Just from the moral side, this concept is important. Practically, or logically, when you come to think of it, our time concept is the past, present, and the future. I explained it before. When we talk about the past, we only talk about, in this life, we talk about yesterday or the year before or the day when you're born. That's the past. You don't go, if you don't believe in reincarnation, you don't go beyond your birth. And the present, of course, you know, The future, you don't know. Tomorrow or next year or 10 years later, you don't know when is your death, so you don't know tomorrow. But the Buddha's perspective of time is much broader. The Buddha's perspective of time is previous lives, which is more logical. How can our view should be so restricted to just this 100 years? Just by extrapolation of the time concept. There are people 1,000 years ago. So the past is not just your life, there's previous lives. If you extrapolate from the logical thinking, there must be some previous life that carry me to this life, and there's going to be a next. And also, morally also, let's get with the moral concept. It is not fair if there is no reincarnation. Because what bad things I have done now, nothing will happen to me, because when I'm dead, I'm dead. It's not fair. You can kill, you can do all what you want without retribution. But if there's the next life, the whole thing will be fairer, because you have to be responsible. The karma will be brought forward. Well, this question can go on and on. We can use a whole semester to explain this, which I'm not going to. Question: how can someone exist in nothing, emptiness? I think your understanding of emptiness is nothing is erroneous. Emptiness does not mean nothing. Emptiness means everything. If I use the Chinese language, 空不是什么都没有，空是什么都有，就是有才是空，空才是有，有是妙有，空是真空。你把空跟无混在一谈，错了。So, emptiness does not mean nothing. What is emptiness? Sunyata means. A lot of people can tell. But just to let you know more, what's the definition of emptiness? What is the definition of emptiness? How to define emptiness? It means nothing? It means, oh, this cup is empty. No, it does not mean that. Emptiness has a few characteristics. The first one is, everything is characterized by causality. Causes and conditions put together, cause and effect. Because it exists based on cause effect, it does not have its own self-nature of existence. It does not exist by its own endeavor. It exists because of many, many other things that makes it come to pass, that makes it come into being. So it does not have its own nature. Its own nature is void. There's no, because anything has a nature, is permanent, is self-created, is come into being by this self-own endeavors. And as I said, I haven't found one like that. Is there anything in this world that comes out by itself? So the first definition of emptiness is everything is created out of causality. Not just thing, every event. The fact that you're coming here today to eat this dinner, this lunch, is empty. Why? Because it's all causes put together that your presence is here. It takes time to think about, it takes a little more depth to think about this philosophy. So that's the first one. The second one, it is empty. It is not permanent. It is impermanent. This lunch will finally be dissolved. We're coming together now, we're happy, we're eating, and the time will come that we'll have to disintegrate, we'll have to disperse. So its existence is temporary. Your existence, my existence, every existence is impermanence. That's why we call it empty. It's impermanent, but it exists when it's when it is existing, it exists. So causality, impermanence, and svabhava, asvabhava. Asvabhava is no self-created nature. That's enough. It does not mean nothing. Emptiness means that. How can something exist in nothing? No, I don't mean in nothing. Everything exists. But to get away from this ideology, something high-sounding, just use the common language to talk about it. Because of emptiness that everything exists. If this room is not empty, it's all jammed, no more existence, no more additional thing can be added onto it. Because it's empty, it can be crowded. Because it's nothing, it fills a lot of things. Because the space is empty, it gets filled up by all of us. If the space is not empty, where are you? Because of nothing, there's something. If that is something and nothing, then there can't be anything in the nothing. Do you get it? Wow, I don't know. You get me confused. Yeah. Okay, next question. After studying the four stanzas today and the attempt to have a non-ego, a non-form, etc., excuse my question, Honorable Venerable. As it is, let's put it this way, better be dead or living. It's good that you add or living. Well, because it sounds like better be dead, but then you say or living. I prefer living. You prefer death? No. Yeah, it's non-ego. That means if I don't have an ego, if I don't have an identity, I may as well be dead. If you don't have an identity, if you don't have an ego, you are a saint. You are on your way to happiness. It's just like when we're talking about the four marks of Buddhism. The first one is everything is impermanent. The second one is everything is based on causality. Some people may raise his hand and said, well, it seems a lot of suffering. It's impermanent. It's so pessimistic. It's so impermanent. I am grief-stricken. I feel so despair. I feel so disappointed. When I hear about this concept of impermanence, I feel sad. I may as well be dead. So that is a very negative way of viewing impermanence. That is a very pessimistic way of viewing impermanence. You know how the Buddha viewed impermanence? Sakyamuni Buddha 2,600 years ago in India, he was a prince. The king wanted to stop him from going outside the palace because the king had a premonition that his son is going to be an ascetic monk, and he wanted his son to succeed him. He didn't want his son to go out to the palace, so give him all the luxuries to his son, Siddhartha Gautama. And one day, the young man, Siddhartha Gautama, got out from the palace, and he saw four phenomena. The first phenomena is he saw an old man having a crutch, crooked back, very weak, very feeble, couldn't walk, maybe 100 years old, he's almost dead, but he was still walking with difficulty. That's aging. He saw aging. And then he also saw a side when they have a funeral service, dead man being burned on the banks of the Ganges River and being pushed out to the water. People dead. He'd never seen any death scene in the palace before. He saw death. He saw aging and he saw death. And then he passed another door and he saw the sickness, suffering and disease. Leprosy, disease. And then he saw another phenomena. There was a monk who walked gracefully with a bow going on arms round. And he asked him, he said, I'm practicing the way of enlightenment. And he said, that's the way I want. So out of sickness, the sight of sickness, despair and suffering, aging and death, he didn't give up. He didn't say, I'm despair, I don't want to see it. He wanted to find a way to get away from these three unwelcomable sights. He go further. He wanted to get rid of despair. He wanted to get rid of impermanence. He wanted to go beyond death. But the common man just get despair and sit there and doing nothing. He preferred to be dead because all this is negative. He himself is negative. But there is a positive attitude in the negativeness. We can change it. If there's suffering, we won't say, oh, there's suffering, I'm dead, I'm despair, I don't want to do anything, I give up. Don't ever give up. The Buddha didn't give up. Siddhartha Gautama didn't give up. He went on to his route, the spiritual odyssey, to search for having no sickness, no death, no impermanence. And he got nirvana. He found a way. He found a way to get away from all these sufferings. He became successful in doing it. And he told us what to do to walk his path. And here is a man who's despair, he didn't want to do anything, he just wanted to commit suicide and be dead. You see the difference? So I don't want to see, I may as well be dead. You better live. We want to see you next time in here. What do you think we can do to help what? To help countries that concerned around current world crisis affecting people's normal lives? What do you think we can do to help? What can we do to help is we promote the Dharma. We promote the four lines dances. We're going to tell people that you can change it. We can change society by changing people's mind. If people's mind get to be more peaceful, more kind, more compassionate, the whole society will be more compassionate, more peaceful, and more kindness. The whole world will be a better world to live in. No killing, no war, no stripes, no genocide, no struggle, no fightings, no killing of animals, no murdering. We start from the mind. That's why we meditate. That's why we promote. That's why we have to ignite this fire of enlightenment, the fire of the search for enlightenment. We are a small little group in here, but we ignite that match. We light up the lantern and let the lantern pass on. Let the lantern, it's a little light, little bulb in a little lantern. We maintain that light in there and we pass it on. And one day it would pass on and on and on forever until all people are enlightened. There is so little we can do, and there's a lot that we have accomplished. So, how do we help? You can help the whole world by changing yourself first. Don't ask the world to change. Don't ask people's mind to change. Why don't you ask your mind? You say, I want to change the world, and your mind is still selfish and egoistic. How can you change others to be non-egoistic if you're egoistic? Changing yourself. By changing yourself, people see your attitude, your action, your thought, they changed. You set yourself as an example. If you want to teach your children to be better individuals, you've got to be you yourself. You start to change. You start to give examples to your younger generation. Don't require your younger generations to be better than you, whereas you are deteriorating your attitude, your speech, your thought. Change your own mind first. That is the thing that you can do. We don't need you to be a politician. Can you just change? Can I just change? Can we all just change for the better? For more purification, for more peacefulness, for more tranquility, for more compassion? It's up to you. As I calm my thoughts and slip into meditation, I often find myself falling asleep. How can I prove myself? How can I prevent myself sleeping during meditation? Oh, that's a good question. It's not a laughable question. It's a question that many people, it's a problem that many people have. First of all, let me ask you, have you got enough sleep? Well, if you stay for late shows, you deserve it. You stay for late shows until midnight, and the next morning when you come on a Saturday morning and you doze off to sleep, and I say, why don't you stay away from late shows? And if you talk on the phone for 1.5 hours to 2 hours to your friends, your girlfriends or boyfriends, and next time when you come you feel sleepy, you have a problem. So why don't you first of all, get enough sleep first. And don't replace sleep with meditation. You must be in a sound health to meditate properly. So you sleep properly, and if you sleep properly, that's the first requirement. Then you won't fall into sleep. Then you'll be more alert. I don't have to go further. If you haven't got enough sleep, if you have got enough sleep, you would not have fallen into sleep.